Look at these two. The beard, the robes, the general vibe of knowing things we don't. They look like they should be in the same fantasy club, right? But here's the twist. They're complete opposites, and if Tolkien ever saw you put them in the same category, he'd probably sigh, adjust his pipe, and quietly mutter something about how English has failed him again. Because, and this might surprise you, Tolkien actually disliked the word wizard. Yeah, the guy who literally gave us Gandalf didn't even like calling him a wizard. That's like George Lucas saying, Jedi was never my favorite word, when Tolkien's wizards were meant to be something much more profound. You see, Tolkien didn't really create wizards the way modern fantasy does. He translated them. In a 1951 letter, he explained that the name wizard was simply an Englishing of their elvish name, Istar, and he was very clear about this. Their name, as related to wise, is an Englishing of their elvish name, and is used throughout as utterly distinct from sorcerer or magician. Because in Tolkien's world, being a wizard isn't about learning spells, it's about being wise. The elvish root Istar literally means one who knows. So if his wizards weren't really wizards, why use the word at all? The answer is simple. English forced his hand. He needed something readers would instantly recognize. Istar was accurate, but let's be honest, it sounds like a space station or a cholesterol drug. So, wizard it was. Bearers of divine knowledge, not human magicians showing off. In other words, Tolkien's wizard wasn't a spellcaster, he was a philosopher in disguise. But this word choice came with a huge warning label. Tolkien hated what he called magic as machinery, using power to dominate and control. In his letters, he described that as the beginning of evil. So when he used wizard, he was terrified you'd get the wrong idea. That's not just grumpy Professor Energy. That's Tolkien protecting the moral backbone of his universe. The modern idea of a wizard glorifies the very thing his stories warn against. So, if wizard is the wrong word, what were they? Let's be blunt. Gandalf isn't an old man who learned magic. He's a supernatural intelligence wearing a human skin suit. Yeah, the beard is just a disguise. He's basically divine undercover. To put it in clearer terms, he's essentially an angel, on a very strict mission to Middle-earth. Tolkien tells us in Unfinished Tales that the Istari, Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the two blue wizards were Maiar, divine spirits sent by the Valar, the archangel-like powers of this world. Their mission was to guide elves and men against Sauron. But here's the catch. They were explicitly forbidden to show themselves in forms of majesty or to seek to rule the wills of men and elves by open display of power. They had the power to level mountains, but were under strict orders not to. Imagine that temptation. It's like giving someone admin privileges to reality and saying, please don't touch anything. And this is where most fans miss the heart of it. This wasn't a weakness. It was the entire point. Their authority wasn't magical, it was moral. They led by example, not by command. Their frail, old man disguises were a feature, not a bug. They looked approachable so people would listen to their wisdom, not kneel before their power. Tolkien literally built humility into their character models. The Silmarillion reinforces this, saying the Istari came to encourage, not to dominate. This was theological for Tolkien. In a letter, he flat out called Gandalf an angelic emissary. He was designing a being whose greatest strength was its restraint. That's why Gandalf's to-do list looks underwhelming. He gives pep talks, yells at hobbits, and occasionally lights a pine cone on fire. He never takes over the quest because that's literally against his job description. The paradox Tolkien loved most was this: the more power you have, the less you should use it. And, of course, not everyone followed that rule. So, with the rules now clear, guide, don't dominate. The real lesson comes from seeing what happens when they're followed and when they're broken. First, the failure. Saruman. You can almost see the resume. Once top of the class, now working for the enemy. He was the head of the Order, the wisest, but he decided the best way to fight Sauron was to become a cheaper version of him. He traded wisdom for cunning and guidance for control. He became obsessed with the machine, Tolkien's term for using power to dominate. The moment Gandalf breaks his staff, it's not just a defeat. The divine authority he was given is officially recalled for misuse. Then, there's Radagast. Everyone writes him off as the weird, bird-loving uncle, which, to be fair, he kind of is. But he's also one of the few who actually remembered the assignment. He remained faithful to his mission, the stewardship of nature. He serves without any desire to rule, and in Tolkien's world, that's a quiet success. And finally, the wild cards, the blue wizards. We know almost nothing. They went east and never came back. In some drafts, Tolkien suggested they failed. In others, he imagined they secretly undermined Sauron's forces. Their ambiguity is the point. True service doesn't always get a headline. We just never got the spin-off. The pattern is undeniable. When an Istar seeks to rule, he falls. When he serves, he fulfills his purpose. And that brings us back to the wizard everyone thinks they know, Gandalf, and the pop culture confusion that follows him everywhere. This all leads to the ultimate comparison, the moment Gandalf and Dumbledore stop looking like cousins and start looking like philosophical opponents. One runs a school, the other runs interference for destiny itself. Because when you place them side by side, the difference isn't just stylistic, it's foundational. Pop culture wizards, from Merlin to Dumbledore, are defined by mastery. Their power is in knowledge, control, and their ability to bend reality. They are the ultimate expression of human intellect as a weapon. But Gandalf? He's defined by restraint. Dumbledore is a scholar of spells. Gandalf's real magic is patience. It's basically the difference between a science teacher and a life coach. And only one of them fights Balrogs. This isn't a coincidence. It's the heart of Tolkien's worldview. He saw magic as machinery as something deeply wrong. It strips the world of its wonder and turns creation into a system to be controlled. That's why the One Ring is the ultimate evil. It's the fantasy version of an all-access power pass. And Tolkien's whole point is that no one should have it. And that's why Gandalf, in his greatest moment of wisdom, refuses to take it. He knows it would destroy him, because Tolkien's good characters don't seek power, they resist it. Contrast that with the classic wizards we see, where mastering ever greater magic is the entire goal. Tolkien's moral framework flips that on its head. Gandalf's strength isn't in bending reality, it's in standing firm when everyone else breaks. His famous line, "You shall not pass," isn't a display of overwhelming power. It's an act of ultimate sacrifice. He's not trying to destroy the Balrog, he's buying time for his friends to escape. That's the core of Tolkien's wizard, moral courage over magical control. So, while Dumbledore might have a cooler office and a better beard care routine, Gandalf wins in the department that actually matters. When you piece it all together, the conclusion is inescapable. Gandalf's greatest moments aren't when he flexes power, they're when he refuses to. That's why his fights look so different. He doesn't vaporize the Balrog, he stands his ground. He doesn't command armies, he inspires them. Every act is one of stewardship, not domination. Think of him turning down the One Ring. In that single moment, he demonstrates the core of Tolkien's entire moral universe. True strength isn't in seizing power, it's in the wisdom to let it go. This flips the script on conventional fantasy. In most worlds, magic equals might. But in Tolkien's, wisdom equals strength. So, when Tolkien worried about the word wizard, he wasn't just being pedantic. He was defending the soul of his story, a worldview where goodness guides rather than controls. He didn't hate wizards, he redefined them. That one sentence could sum up half of Tolkien's creative life. His Istari are servants of wisdom, not masters of magic. They don't command, they counsel. They don't rule, they resist. And that's a message that resonates far beyond the pages of a book. Because in our world, just like in Middle-earth, we're often told that power is about control. That more strength, more influence, more force is the answer. But Tolkien, through a humble old man in a gray cloak, offers a different path. Maybe that's the quiet lesson he wanted to leave us with. Because in Tolkien's world, the greatest magic isn't a spell, it's humility. And that's the truth Tolkien wanted hidden in plain sight. This video became a bit more analytical than I originally imagined. I have spent a lot of time researching and creating this video for you, so a thumbs up and subscribing would truly help me out. Thanks for watching.